Thanks to everybody for being here. This is the first Berlin dbt Meetup. I'm quite excited. I'd like to start with a short introduction, first of myself and of Gemma. I'm co-founder of Gemma Analytics. We are analytics as a service company. We do greenfield data warehousing projects, as well as special projects, such as multi-channel attribution modeling and everything in between. We are 10 passionate data enthusiasts working for a range of clients, from small startups to corporate clients. I'm really excited to be able to host this event today, together with Ben, our project manager, because we love dbt. I've been using dbt since 2018. We use dbt whenever we have a need for data transformation. We love this tool, and we love the opportunity to give back to the community and connect with like-minded data enthusiasts. Fortunately, due to the COVID situation, of course, this is still going to be remote today, but we're also looking forward to making this an in-person event at some point in the future. So stay tuned, stay with us, and looking forward to that as well. Let's get started. First, I'd like to start with a short XKCD comic. I think that should set the mood right for today. And then I would like to take a small look at the agenda. So we are right in the middle of my welcome remarks. Probably take a few minutes longer than 6:35, but we'll be fine. And then we're going to have a talk by Andras Zimmer on data exploration and visualization in the modern data stack. So he's going to talk about superset. That's going to be quite interesting. And after his talk, we're going to have a Q&A session. I'm going to get into how that's going to work in a second. Followed by our second speaker, Jakub, is going to talk about the role of computational notebooks in the modern data stack. So it's all about tools that can be quite fitting in the modern data stack and how they can fit together with dbt. With regards to the Q&A, during the entire talk, you'll be able to ask questions. It would be great if you could join the community Slack and join the local Berlin channel, because we would like to pool the questions over there. So if you have questions, Ben and I will facilitate asking that question to our speaker. So please feel free to join the community channel now if you haven't yet. And now some small announcements with regards to dbt. So of course, the dbt meetups are not the only way to keep in touch. I would also like to highlight the Analytics Engineering podcast, as well as the community newsletter, which is always very insightful. And finally, of course, the Coalesce conference, which is going to be early December this year. And I believe Jakub is also going to be preparing a talk for that. I highly recommend checking that out. Take a look. First, we have Andras Zimmer from Hiflylabs. Welcome, Andras. He is the CTO of a big data-centric consulting company, and he's going to talk about superset in combination with dbt. And while doing that, he will show us a quite interesting analysis of the job market with regards to data engineering and analytics engineering. And then we have Jakub Zitny from Deepnote. So Jakub and his team from Deepnote are trying to answer some questions about the use of notebooks in the workflow of people working with data on modern data stacks. I'm excited to hear it. You will hear from him after Andras. Let's take a look. Andras, are you ready?
Yes, I am. I'll take over the screen from you. So I will talk about the data exploration and visualization part of the modern data stack, or one tool in that stack. As I've been introduced briefly, my name is Andras Zimmer, and I'm the CTO of Hiflylabs. It's around 150 people consulting company. We do everything with regard to data. We do data warehousing, data lakes, data analytics, and consulting around data. And we also do data visualizations. You can contact me after the talk on either of these two channels. Ask me any questions if you have. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Okay, now to Superset. Superset is a data exploration and visualization tool. It has three phases to it. One phase is the first one is the data exploration part, or what we use for as the first. The data exploration part is for data analysts or analytics engineers to make sense of whatever they have come up with data, perhaps after massaging the data with dbt. The second phase of it is a dashboarding tool. Once you have some insights, you may want to share it with others, and you can build pretty neat dashboards in Superset, and you can share it with your colleagues or with your clients as well. We all know that it very frequently is required to look into the detailed data set that we're working on. So there's a tool for it in Superset as well. It's called the SQL Lab, and you can query the data here. These are the three things that Superset does. It helps you slice and dice the data. It helps you present the data, and it helps you investigate the data at its most granular level. Okay, what's in Superset? So we have lots of visualization tools in the market. Why would I recommend looking into Superset or considering it as a solution? For one, it's widely applicable. It's widely applicable because it's compatible with almost all relational SQL databases. It's by design and by the components that they have used. It's built onto Python and Python's famous SQL Alchemy package, which has connectors to almost all SQL DBs that you can think of. You can run it on premise or use it as an SCS tool. So in that regard, it's very similar to dbt and fits very well to our workflows. It's easy to learn and easy to use for data analysts, and also for people who have less experience with data visualization tools. It's a fairly lightweight tool, so it's not that complex. And as it's very much like dbt, it's free and open source, and it also has an SCS backing. It was founded or first conceived at Airbnb in 2015, and it's been trending ever since. Its 1.0 release happened this January, and you can see the real big jump in its star history. So it's the GitHub stars that the project got. It's beyond 40,000 now, so it's a pretty big project. And it's got notable users from all around the world. Airbnb and Lyft are big users because the team who first came up with the idea of Superset and first built it worked at Airbnb and then at Lyft. But we have users from all around the world. For example, some of you may know Zalando, obviously. The small and large companies alike use this a lot. Okay, so how would it fit in the modern data stack? It's got these same fundamentals. So it's conceptually similar in that it does one thing, visualization, but does it very well. It's open source and SaaS, as I've told you, and it's platform independent. It will run on most platforms that you can think of, and it's a very well supported tool. So it's in that conceptually similar to other tools in the modern data stack. It fits in very well, and it also structurally fits right in. It's a cloud-first solution that builds on dbt as a data preparation layer. That I'll talk about this a little bit later. It supports all the targets or databases that dbt is native on, and it speaks largely to the same audience, i.e. data analysts who have engineering needs or data engineers who want to look into their data. So engineering focused data analysts. Okay, so Superset is, as I've mentioned briefly, leans very much on proper data preparation. It's a lightweight tool. It doesn't have much data preparation capabilities built in. It's more than none, but most of the heavy lifting must be done outside of the tool. We usually recommend dbt to that end because they fit together pretty nicely. And we stressed that business definitions and data mappings should be kept outside of the visualization tool because they all too often get buried in there and doesn't have a company-wide understanding or a standard for the metrics. I haven't mentioned, but most of our clients are large enterprise clients or large enterprise organizations. And in that context, it's even more important to have a a standard set of KPIs, for example. It also needs proper partitioning and properly prepared data for data security. Okay, let me show you the brief analysis so that you can look into what Superset is capable of. We have the data for open positions on Glassdoor on the 11th of September, and we analyzed the dbt related jobs. One interesting fact is that if you look at the open dbt positions per million of inhabitants, I would have believed that the United States comes out first, but it doesn't. The United Kingdom is far larger in that KPI, and even Sweden and Canada would come ahead of the United States. You can also see that open job titles very often have data engineering as an expression in them. I'll talk about this later, but you can see that the second largest is analytics engineer, coined a term that dbt community coined. I would like to show the geographical distribution of the jobs is that Germany is the second largest job market in dbt in Europe, and within Germany, you can see that Berlin is by far the largest. It's also interesting that in the USA, the East Coast has more open positions on Glassdoor than West Coast companies. I wouldn't have guessed that beforehand. If you look at by continent, it's very interesting that Europe has a much larger amount and proportion of people who are recruited for ETL, standard old-fashioned ETL positions than for dbt positions, than the same in the US. It's also well known that dbt is mostly favored by smaller companies, and you can identify it from this chart as well, whereas traditional ETL is more balanced with a little skew towards the larger company. I especially like this sunburst chart. I've seen sunburst charts in many visualization tools. They are usually not very usable, but this is a nice one. I like this. Not for dashboarding purposes, but for analytic purposes, it's really good. But there's one more thing that I want to share with you is that ETL jobs are mostly data engineering. So data engineering and ETL is very much the same thing in the job market. Whereas analytics engineer, as I've mentioned, has popped up, and everything that's analytics engineering is dbt related. So if you want to make sure that you end up with dbt jobs, look for analytics engineering. Don't look for SQL developer because you will end up with ETL kind of jobs. There are lots more analyses that we have here, but I won't talk about everything because it's going to be long. But you can see what kind of analyses Superset makes easy. Okay. In summary, why do you like Superset? We believe that it's a worth and performant visualization tool. We use it internally and with clients as well. It plays well with dbt and finds its place in the modern data stack, so it fits nicely in as a puzzle. It works as a data exploration tool, and then whatever you explored, it's easy to dashboardize. And it has top-notch chart selection and presentation quality, and it's worthy of mentioning because it's not very often found in free and open source tools. Visualization is not an arena where free and open source tools shine usually. As I told you, it's available as an open source project as well as an SCS offering. We use it from Docker containers a lot, much like we use dbt, and it works nice as well. And an SCS offering, we have tried that, and that's pretty good. It's got a very strong foundation and improves. It was founded by Max Boscheman, who previously created Apache Airflow, which you also may know. So it's from a good breed, and it has a very strong community with a sound vision and direction. We expect a lot from it. If you're interested, you can look into our blogs. We have two 2 blogs specifically about superset, the 2 blog posts. And there are other interesting items on our blog, so you can look at those. And if you are in need of help with dashboards or analytics or data platforms, just reach out to me on the contact points that I shared on the first slide. That's what I wanted to tell today. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right. Thank you so much, Andras. Thank you for showing us Superset and for showing us this very interesting analysis of the job market. I have one question for you already, and the first one is, what kind of data access control does Superset provide? Can you elaborate that a little bit?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I should have mentioned it in the talk. As I told you, most of our clients are enterprise ones, so they are especially interested in data access control and data security. And Superset is equipped in that arena. It has obviously functional level access control, so you can be an admin or you can have editing rights on certain dashboards. But you also can have different levels of access to different levels of data. So you can let people see certain data sources and not others. And there is also the possibility within the tool to have a row level data security setup. In the dashboard, some people see certain rows of data, certain records, and not others. This is much more of a big deal at bigger organizations, but we have seen such demands in smaller ones as well.
Got it. Thank you so much. We have another one, which is, how does Superset compare to the more well-known alternatives? So specifically mentioned is here Looker, Tableau, and Power BI. What would you say?
It's a longer topic. I would suggest that you visit our blog and see it's in the second part of our blog post. But to summarize briefly, it's a much more lightweight alternative. It doesn't do as much as, for example, Tableau or Power BI internally. On the visualization side, it's equal. On some of its capability even are better than these tools. For example, this data security part is not that well supported in other tools, but it still has room to grow with regards to community size. For example, Power BI and Tableau has much larger community than Superset has at this point. But functionality-wise, they are on par, I would say.
Got it. Thanks. We have another question from Lenny. Is there a native integration for dbt metadata planned or maybe already existent by any chance? So maybe for schemas or documentation by dbt users or something like that.
This has been recently raised in the Superset community, whether they are to build a much closer integration between the two. At present, there is none or very little, but I have a feeling that in a year's time, we'll have significant.
We have two more questions, very interesting questions too. So the first one is specifically about geodata. Victoria is asking, do you know about geodata visualization support? Apparently that's something where Looker is not doing quite well.
Superset has very good geodata visualization support. If Victoria, you drop me a mail or some message after this, we can talk about your specific needs, because it may or may not be easy to solve with Superset, but it does have pretty good geodata visualizations.
All right. So is it basically maps or heat maps or world maps?
It's got heat maps. It's got bar charts over geographical areas. It's got a few of them. A very trivial one I can show you, but we have a very trivial one in my presentation here. This is not the best it can do. It's just one that I put it in here.
Nice. So we even have a visual. Then we have from Alexandra a question on alerts. Can you trigger alerts such as email or Slack alerts with Superset if metrics reach a certain threshold, for example?
The honest answer is that I'm not 100% sure, but conceptually, it's not a monitoring tool, but a dashboarding tool. So I would believe that it's not in the core product, but I'll look into that. We have not used it.
Is there any more questions? Last chance. Alrighty. Also, Matthew just shared a link on alerts and reporting. So it looks like there's some functionality there. You can also check that out in the thread of Alexandra's question in the dbt local Berlin channel.
I was not expecting that it can do even this.
Excellent. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Andras. It is time now to go to Jakub. So, Jakub, would you like to share your screen and talk to us about notebooks?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Let me just share my presentation. Should be able to see it now. And let me check very quickly in the Slack channel. So, the role of computational notebooks in the modern data stack. I work for Deepnote. We're based in Prague, and we are trying to solve the problem with interactive notebooks and connecting all of the services in the data stack to a single place. At the same time, I'm doing my PhD in deep learning, and I work with medical data and medical prediction and explainability, like deep learning. For example, when a neural network predicts that the tumor is in an X-ray scan or a CT scan. And I teach machine learning and computer vision. But most of my time, I'm like software engineer at Deepnote, and I'm pushing all the new functionalities and features. And since I'm from like this more techie background, coming into this data analytics space, I have some opinions on how can you be more productive, or how can you achieve more if you just learn a little bit of Python or some language. And I will try to share that with you today. First of all, what is modern data stack? This term is pushed by Fivetran and dbt, and what I imagine when someone says modern data stack, and they are not a consultant coming up with these solutions for companies, but when I talk to people who already have something along the lines of modern data stack, I imagine Fivetran or Stitch. I imagine they probably use dbt. Like it's probably like 100% chance that people use dbt if they talk about modern data stack. Then, of course, they have their warehouse, which from my experience is mostly BigQuery or Snowflake. Of course, it can be something else, but I always imagine BigQuery or Snowflake. And then there is an arrow, and then you do some kind of business intelligence, some analytics on top of that. And you use Looker, Power BI, or Superset, or notebooks. If you have data scientists, if you have people who want to hands-on code and work with the data. But usually people don't understand, or usually people from modern data stack world don't really use Jupyter notebooks. I guess some of you will probably know them. Oh, actually, this could have been a poll as well. But if you don't know Jupyter notebooks, they look like this. It's a bit of code, a bit of interactive plotting, on top of that, mapping, loading some data. You have to set it up locally, but there are some hosted options and so on. So if you have some Python skills or Julia or R language skills for programming, you can load some of the data or connect to your database, and you can program on top of that, and then you can achieve similar things than with BI tool. But some people have opinions about notebooks. There's been a long history of notebooks for over 10 years. And they have accumulated some of the technical debt or some like bad practices that they promote. There is this popular talk by Joel Grus. It was, I think, in 2018 on JupyterCon, and he said he doesn't like notebooks. This was very popular, actually. He announced this talk on a Twitter thread, like a couple months in advance, and there was, Twitter, so there has been a large flame war. But after that, this talk has become really popular, and like people realize that there are some fundamental things that notebooks like this are not really good at. Here is a couple of pain points that Jupyter notebooks or notebooks in general promote or make easy. So, for example, it's bad collaboration. They are not reproducible because there are these cells or blocks that you can reorder or re-execute at different times, and then another person comes, or you share your notebook with another person, and they don't know what kind of order you did execute it in. or maybe you have executed something and deleted it and something's in the state. You don't have as quality hints for the programming as you would have in VS Code or some more professional IDE. It's difficult to install and set up. So many people outside of research, students, machine learning, data scientists, they don't really like this. Maybe I'm wrong. Yes, there's a lot of smart people who know how to deal with all of these things and do things the right way, but it's not a majority. I would even guess that in this audience, majority of people don't regularly use notebooks. But can notebooks be better? And I want to say that I think they can be better. And there are already some examples of great notebooks out there. This is a very simple example. People usually have problems with reviewing notebooks in GitHub. And there is this service called NB Review that connects to your GitHub, and you can just comment on top of or below the cells, which is really a simple thing to do or to program, but it's so many people. And even when we review student work at school, we use this and it's really good. But this is very easy. So there are more notebooks like SQL data exploration notebooks like Count or Mo. This is also our example. What we are trying to do is have the regular interactive way of exploring stuff in notebook. You can connect any database. You can publish your notebooks as dashboards. You can publish your notebooks in Deepnote as articles, like blog posts. You can also connect to pipelines and machine learning retraining services or model deployments or like weights and biases, model monitoring services, and so on. So I think we can solve the problems with others as well. Can these notebooks, can this workflow, can the problems that we solve and others solve with notebooks, can they fit in modern data workflow? And I on purpose left out data analyst there. Modern data workflow landscape is this. So any combination of random words here is data landscape here. Can notebooks fit in the modern data analyst workflow? We are on a dbt Meetup. So can notebooks be beneficial for dbt users? And I also think that they can. For example, one of the PopSQL or Popsicle service, they already introduced the beta version of dbt plus kind of SQL client online. I wanted to show it to you, but I didn't get the beta yet. So I only saw it on the video. And by the way, we are at Deepnote, we use dbt as well. And the problems that we have with using dbt in command line versus using dbt in cloud, some of the problems that we have are nice in this PopSQL service. So you can generate the macros and you are connected to your Snowflake and you can iterate more quickly. You don't have to copy your queries from your SQL client local or VS Code or so on and so on. So this is like a notebook solution, PopSQL, that they also provide dbt integration. But I will continue answering the question in a bit. But I have this survey here. Where do you do and test your initial dbt modeling? When you are a consultant, then you come to this company that they already have a warehouse and you want to introduce dbt into their stack. Or when you start with the new set of transformations that you want to do, what do? So you first have to explore the data. You have to maybe plot some things, play with the results, filter out some things. And you don't do this on dbt Cloud, or do you? So this is my question to you. And we are asking this live in the Berlin dbt channel. I already asked it before last week in some of the other channels in dbt Slack. And it looks like most of the people use command line interface and some sort of VS Code or some sort of text editor where they can type the queries or type the macros. And I was just curious if we'll get the same results. And it looks like we do. Let's say this is statistically enough. So number 3, command line interface. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. dbt Cloud, 5 users. This is more than before. So I guess you are the modern dbt users here. I personally worked a bit with dbt Cloud, and I think the dbt they have a lot of features coming on. They will solve a lot of these problems soon, and even major things maybe a little bit later. I still feel like we can improve some of the things that dbt Cloud will not be able to solve just yet. And oh yeah, I have a screenshot of dbt Cloud. I did some exploration. I needed to filter some interesting projects that we want to showcase in our community. And we do this every week or every other week. So I just wanted to save it back to our Snowflake as well for further analysis. I had to explore some of the things that the community team will need later on. And I just compiled my query, then I ran it, and I previewed, and I had some results. Good. But as soon as I need some more complicated things to do with data, my proposal is I want to load them into a notebook and play with them a little bit. But you can ask me, are you a software engineer? Or I'm more technical. I have the background of a data scientist without understanding a lot of SQL or without understanding deep Python stuff. Can they benefit from notebooks? And I still say yes, even though there might be things that you will find cumbersome from the beginning. But I still feel like you can benefit by connecting your notebook to your warehouse and maybe to your dbt as well, and like work from a notebook. So again, where do modern notebooks fit in? I will step back and talk not just about dbt. In general, you can of course train your neural network, you can program your fit, and then you can deploy your model to UBOps or some other space, and you can monitor your machine learning models in CometML, or you can use Databricks to do the whole pipeline, and part of your notebook will be just part of some larger analysis that will end up in your BI tool. Or you can have your API, you can have a notebook and trigger it by API from some like a pipeline. By the way, at the beginning when I was talking about modern data stack, I didn't mention Airflow, I didn't mention Prefect, I didn't mention Dagster. These are the most popular that come to my mind. So when you do your pipelines, a notebook sometimes naturally fit in somewhere there because your data scientist gave you some piece of the code and then you plug it in. So this is also an example. If you schedule your notebooks in the pipeline, maybe the result will end up in your final analysis, final dashboard, final report. And of course, for machine learning people, this is clear that they use notebooks. But like for dbt, you can still just use a little bit of Python and coding and take your analysis to the next level. You can explore much more with the actual Python code and not just with wrapper functions that BI tools offer you. And then you can do a little bit more than just with dbt macros, and you can definitely do a lot more than Excel macros, which still, a lot of analysts use Excel. I hope I was a little bit clear. I can show you a little bit of our product if you want, but if not, I can just answer some general questions here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I must admit, I always like to say VBA was my first love, so I can very much sympathize with everyone who uses Excel macros, but it's been a long time ago. Very happy to use dbt now. We have one question, which is, how do the other notebooks that you might have already mentioned differ from Deepnote or Hex? So how does, for example, PopSQL, Mode, or Count differ from Deepnote and Hex?
Popsicle, Count, or Mode, they are more leaned towards data analysts, probably, which is the majority of this audience. You mostly start with SQL queries. So your notebook is usually a SQL editor, and then you can get your answers, and then you can maybe display them, play a little bit with them. Some of these tools already offer basic Python support, but it's not their primary goal. While Hex or Deepnote or Colab, for example, so there are a couple of others. What we are trying to do is focus on the Python experience and play well with others. So you have all Python there. Actually, this is backed by our hardware, but for Jupyter, you can use your local hardware or your own server. But you can connect any kind of database or warehouse. You can connect to your model deployment. You can connect to Airflow, or actually to anything from the MLOps space, which is really wide. Or you can send the data directly to your Power BI or something like that, but you don't always need this. So if you want to explore the opportunities of Python or coding, then you can use Hex or Deepnote or Colab. But if you don't, you can just try mode. Mode is great. And there was a question about, oh yeah, go on, show us a little bit. Okay, so I prepared some examples here. I will try to move this over here. And so this is our notebook. It looks similar to Jupyter, but there are some interesting things here. So for example, you have this regular Python. I'm running on machine, so you can change some machines. You can use GPU, but you don't need, if you don't need it. You can use queries directly. And then, for example, you can visualize some of the things that we detect in the data, or you don't necessarily need to visualize. You can just work with the results of SQL queries. So and this is like one extra awesome thing, that you can query CSV files like they are an SQL database. So I have a different example here connected to our production database, but it can be a BigQuery database as well. And so this is what we use this for merging user accounts when they decide to change some of them. So I can actually execute something that goes to our real database, and then I can work with the results from SQL in my Python. So this is now in Python. Yeah, so this is Python, but this is Python as well. We offer you like this nice table because we already format this pandas data frame. So if this is a lot of data, then you can use Coiled. This is a very nice company as well. They do stuff with Dask, but yeah, let's not get deep into that. So automatic visualizations, you can connect to your CSVs. By the way, the CSVs are also, you can explore them similar in Excel. Yes, I could have loaded it before. So you can explore your CSV. We provide you some nice outlier detection there. Then we have a bunch of integrations here. And one more interesting thing, yeah, so this is also like example when we load stuff from CSV and then you have some previews of the data here. You can of course visualize stuff like this, but this is general in notebooks. And the most interesting thing for me is that you can change your notebook into a dashboard. So we have this, or I will show it here. So we have this publishing editor or app builder where you can create a dashboard. You can choose these input cells, or you can choose these results here, and then you can publish it, and then it will look like just a dashboard. And then you can share this dashboard with your peers or in public. You can choose that, and then they can use the app any way they want, even though they are not a programmer. That was very quickly it.
Thanks, Jakub.
Thanks.
For the deep dive here. We have one more question, which is, how do you make sure that analysts and engineers do not misuse whatever is happening in the notebook?
Yeah, okay, so this comes back also to the Joel Chris talk, where software engineers, they have a lot of opinions on that things should be testable and you should test them, and things should be clear and easy to reason about and so on. And I'm all for that. And I try to sell it to some of the analysts that I work with, and it didn't go very well. Some of them, the people with the technical background, they're like, oh yeah, let's version our notebooks in Git and then look at that and then write proper commit messages and then make sure everything is executed from top to bottom, which is, by the way, one of the things that I really want to push. But most of the analysts working with notebooks, they don't really care about Git, and they don't want to spend extra couple of days or weeks or whatever learning Git. So actually, you can version things. By the way, I didn't show it, but you can version your notebooks in Deepnote as well. But I think there is a clear line that software engineers can be the superstars in software engineering best practices for data analysts or for data scientists. But I think one of the most important things that the data analysts should take from this is the reproducibility. So executing cells from top to bottom. And anytime they publish their notebooks, for example, on GitHub or somewhere else on a research conference or business conference, and they provide their code with the data, everything should be always reproducible. And if there are if there is like a bigger wave in making sure that everything that we share is reproducible, then the world will be a little bit better, in my opinion. So like this top to bottom executability is one of the most important things. I think Git versioning is not that important. I think necessarily encapsulating all the things in functions and classes is not always that needed. But whenever you want to change, or you want to take your notebook from just a notebook for exploration, or from notebook being part of a large pipeline into a notebook code that runs in production, at this point, you should take your software engineer, and then you should rewrite most of the things outside of the notebook to actual modules that are tested and so on. But yeah, so maybe this is the answer.
Understood. Thank you so much, Jakub. It was really quite interesting. First of all, huge thanks to Jakub and Andras again for your presentations. Thanks also to dbt Labs and helping us promote it. This was our first dbt meetup that we organized here for the dbt Berlin chapter. So we would love to hear your feedback so we can make it better. Of course, as well, if somebody has an interesting topic with regards to dbt that they would like to speak about, please also feel free to reach out. I hope I can get you excited for that as well for the next meetup. Details will be coming in a couple of weeks. I hope everybody had a great experience. Again, would love to hear any feedback. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.